Hello everybody and welcome back to LMM. And if you're enjoying what you're seeing on the channel at the moment, how about giving this video a like and maybe subscribing to the channel to help us grow, and perhaps even check out our Patreon. Next door to me, you'll see my Wilesco traction engine, and to run this how it was intended now in the UK is illegal. Yes, this little thing now, to run it as it was designed from the factory, is against the law. And that's because this thing is designed to run on solid fuel. They go into this little burner here, and the solid fuel under the UK law is now illegal. It is illegal to buy it, to sell it, to store it, and to use it, which means there is no way that you can get around actually using the stuff in a burner anymore, unless you want to pay for a license, which is I think £39 for 3 years. But in order to get that license, you have to send off many things to the government, including a passport, a counter signature saying that you're in fine mental health, and I think it's something from the doctor. It's not just an easy thing to do. You have to say that you're not going to use it for bad things. The problem is that solid fuel contains a chemical which could be used to create a large boomy thing, a bad boom thing, which could be used by the bad people to do a bad thing. I think I've managed to keep this completely within the YouTube T's and C's there. So it's now illegal. So I cannot run this with that burner legally. So that brings about the big question. What do I do now, or what do you do if you have a solid fuel burning engine? Well, there are a couple of options for fuel. We could do what we used to do and run them on methylated spirits, or meths as we call it in the UK. Now, I quite like meths burners. I have several engines. In fact, all of the Mammoth engines that I've run so far on the channel run on methylated spirits. That's what they're designed to run on. They moved away from this because it became illegal in America to have a mess burner, so they moved all production across to be the solid burners, which is now illegal. Now, the irony is that a solid fuel burner is a lot safer than that of methylated spirits. It's very easy to knock the burner over and spill it everywhere. The flame burns relatively clear, so it can be hard to see if it's actually on fire. It's a volatile liquid, so it vaporizes easy, and there's a smell about it, and you have to use in a well-ventilated room. And particularly on some of the older steam engines that have a base with holes in it, if you overfuel a burner and it overflows out the side, it then runs through the holes and the base onto your table and sets fire to the table. Ask me how I know. In fact, several of you on live streams have seen me doing just this. But that's still legal. We can use the dangerous liquid fire. That's fine. No problems about that. However, this burner for my Wilesco won't take the methylated spirit. You normally have to have something like cotton wool in there and a grill over the top. So I could fill this with cotton wool, but I don't have the grill, which means the fire will then come down and start burning the cotton wool. So that won't work without extensive modification. Several of the engines that have been sent to me from a country across the sea also I've been running on methylated spirits. Now, technically, to get around the law in the US, it says alcohol. So you're using a high alcohol liquid for the fuel. I'm interpreting that as methylated spirits, but technically they're alcohol burners, which is slightly different. It all burns the same, alcohol's a bit cleaner, but they're running on alcohol, but it's the same principle as methylated spirits, and the two are more or less interchangeable. You have a tank and a wick and you set fire to the wick, or you have a vaporizing burner and you set fire to the vapor. The other common fuel source for creating fire is to have a gas burner. Now, there are gas burners available to run on your Mammoths, and they're often used on larger scale models, particularly live steam in the garden running on railways. However, my experiences with running gas have been, well, it's even more flammable than mess, and it's all pressurized. The little gas-powered hot air engine that I tried, the seal failed on the gas tank. So when it was running, the gas escaped from that and then caught from the burner. And that's kind of put me off gas quite a lot. I didn't enjoy that. So gas equally has to be stored in a pressurized container, has to be stored safely, has to be used with respect. So far, what we've done, or what at least the UK has done, is managed to ban the safest, easiest to use, easiest to store fuel in favour of two fuel sources which are much more volatile and significantly more dangerous. So that's great. So to clarify, the illegal one is the safest for the consumer to use. Again, could be used to make bad things happen, but equally methylated spirits could be used to make bad things, as could the gas, because gas. However, neither of these are suitable for my Wilesco. So what's the way forward? Well, I'm so glad you asked. The answer is fuel gel. Now, this is a pouch full of a waxy fuel. That's basically what it is. It's a flammable gel. And this is what was now going to replace solid fuel. I'm going to have to modify my burner slightly to take this gel because it has air holes along the sides of the firebox to allow air to get in to aid with combustion of the solid fuel. And the gel, well, that will run out of the holes, and that's generally bad. So we got to modify that. Now, the ban on solid fuel is part of the reason of why Mammoth has now shut down. The big part of that was their facilities' rent had gone up and they just couldn't afford it with rising costs, rising electricity, rising costs of living and all of those things. It just became not financially viable. But one of the big final kickers for them was they had a large stock of solid fuel tablets to run their engines, which they then needed a license for and then couldn't sell to the public, and then had to invest very heavily in this stuff in order for the public to be able to run their models. So we're going to see what this stuff is actually like, what it does, how long it lasts, by comparing it to what it would have been like on solid fuel, and see, is this stuff any good, and is this the future, as we can't use the stuff I'm meant to. So first up, let's modify the burner. So first stage, we need to get ourselves some foil, and then we kind of pre-fold it into the shape that we need and encourage it to go into our burner. This took a lot of fine adjustment using a suitable foil arrangement tool, otherwise known as an pen. So let's see what we got. Take the top off and let's see what this is like. Whoa! Oh, that was a bit of a squirt, wasn't it? Oh, this is much more complicated than putting solid fuel in. Well, that's the hang of it. All right, so it says fill the burner at about 3/4. I've overfilled it. This stuff looks really weird. It's almost like a toothpaste. It's obviously a gel. It's odourless. And when you get it on your feels, it feels like Vaseline. I think basically it's just Vaseline. So we'll see what it's like. Now, it does say on the instructions only fill it up to 3/4. Now, I have completely overfilled this as I've gone right to the top. On the other hand, I do know from experience that the Wilesco would run for a fair old time and on several charges of this. It also does stress do not top it up when it's running, which is fairly obvious, but something you could do with the old solid fuel. As the engine was running, you could put another load on. Anyway, let's prep the engine and see what it's like. As with any Mini, the first thing we do is we remove the safety valve. And then we check to make sure that it's functioning. The next job is that we remove the chimney. Then we place the funnel into the boiler and put the chimney into the funnel. And then we get ourselves some water. And then we pour the water down the chimney into the funnel. This is fitted with a sight glass on the back, so we can see how much water is in the boiler. When we get to about the 3/4 mark, that will do. I'm using distilled water today because it's better than tap water as there's no minerals attached to it. Ideally, you'd want to use rainwater as that's pure, but distilled water is near enough. With the boiler full, we can open up that, remove that, and replace the chimney back into its mount. And then it's just a matter of reinstating the safety valve. So now the big moment. Systems on, ignition. And it doesn't light very well. Well, this is disappointing. Oh, it is on fire. Oh, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but it is actually on fire. There's real heat coming off that. Oh, this stuff's even more dangerous. You can't see the fire. Let's put it away. Okay, there we go. The flame is just starting to go, and in the dark under the engine, you can just about see it. Next up, we remove the cap for the steam lubricator. And then we're going to use a syringe to add a few drops of steam oil just into the lubricator, like so. We'll ask it just to draw itself in, and another few drops. With a good slodge put in, we can put the cap on the top of the lubricator and do the rest of the motion. So what I'm using today is a locomotion motion oil, which is designed for model trains, but actually it's a nice thin oil, which is really good and has a nice applicator for doing bits like this on the little and big ends. What I absolutely love about this engine is there are actually holes here on the cross shaft for the lubricator. And for me, filling up actual lubrication points on the side of the engine just make it feel like a proper engine. I'll put a bit on the gears as well. Then just a drop on the little end of the valve spindle, and then a drop here on the slip eccentric. Now as this starts to come around, I can show you one of the features I like most about this. It's got a real working steering wheel with chains attached to the wheels. It also features a double acting piston, so that gets a push stroke here, comes round up into this position where it then gets pulled back again. So you get 2 power strokes per revolution, far better than your standard Mamod with an oscillating cylinder. And that, combined with this, which is a regulator, means you can get this engine running over silky smooth. It also means that if we leave it in this position, with the regulator open, as soon as it's got enough steam, it should move. So having lit this 15 minutes ago and then waited for 10 minutes, nothing's happened. And it stopped making all noises because, well, there's a bit of heat coming off that, but that's not worked. So one charge of this is not sufficient to generate enough steam to run a Wilesco. Right. Well, it said don't add any more, but we're going to add some more because I don't really know what else to do. This time I've overfilled the burner because I actually wanted to do something. It doesn't catch fire well, which is quite a problem for a fuel. And immediately, having put the burner back in with a new set of fuel, the Wilesco is making the sounds of life. In this position, as soon as it's got enough pressure, having a double acting cylinder, it should start moving on its own accord. Just like that. And then using the regulator, we can slow it right down so it's just ticking over. There, have you ever seen anything quite that good? This is why the Wilesco is always my gold standard to compare anything against, because having a steam engine in this size that will tick over that slowly is just phenomenal. When you look down from the footplate, you can almost believe you're on the full size thing. That motion on a miniature is just superb. So my initial thought on this fuel is burning more rapidly and producing more heat, because normally at a tick over, the safety valve isn't blowing off on this on solid fuel, it's just sat quite happily. What a tick over. Of course you lot want to know what happens if I open up the regulator full. And then it runs away at a million miles an hour just like any other Mamod. The slip eccentric is awesome because if you just stop the motion and turn it over in the opposite direction, it reverses the motion and runs the other way. The other super feature on this is the whistle. Oh, if we look down, we can see that the water is no longer boiling, so that's actually already used up that charge of fuel. And that appears, regulator wide open, to be all she wrote. We've had maybe absolute max 10 minutes here. Wow, I don't think I have ever been quite so underwhelmed by a product ever. Whilst yes, it does allow the engine to run, compared to solid fuel, there's no competition at all. It took twice as long and 2 bucketfuls of fuel to actually get it into steam, and then when it did run, it ran for about 10 minutes. Now, I know previously with solid fuel, I would take the burner out, refill it with more solid fuel as it was starting to die down, and effectively stoke it, fire it, and then it would run again. And on a boiler full of water, I could get a good 40 minutes out of this, a good 45 minutes, particularly if you're just letting it tick over and you're not using that water and that steam very quickly. It would also burn slower, so the safety valve wouldn't lift as much. Whereas this, yeah, that whole thing, I got about 10 minutes out of. And that's genuinely disappointing. I was hoping for a lot longer burn. So yes, I can use it. Yes, it does work. Yes, I can still use this legally without having to use the illegal fuel. Yes, I can get hold of this. However, pretty disappointed with the results. I suppose, though, I am looking at it with rose-tinted glasses because I could keep at it the solid fuel. I could get a really good run out of it, whereas this, it's not so much. I was expecting better, though, although it does work. It generates plenty of heat when it's going. The safety valve was lifting, so for your typical man mod that's running away at 1,000,000 miles an hour, that will generate enough heat to make that happen. For me, though, I guess I'll get used to it. It takes some of the joy out of running this model, though. The things are, though, that flame is A, very hard to light, and B, very difficult to see. That's vaguely dangerous in the regard that you can't see that it's on fire. On the other hand, one of the things I did fail to mention with solid fuel was if you got the solid fuel wet and then set fire to it, then it'd go and pop bang and, yeah, generally did the rapid disassembly, very hot rapid disassembly everywhere. Pretty sure that's a YouTube safe term. When it was inside the firebox, like on this, it didn't really matter. You just hear it go bang, and that was fine. If you're trying to do something else with it, like use it as a fire lighter, or use it to heat a kettle or something, maybe a bit more of a problem. So yeah, it will do. It's not as good as the stuff that's been taken away. And this stuff, well, it works. So let me know if I've done my burner wrong. Maybe if I wrap the outside of my burner with the foil rather than putting it inside, I can get a bit more in there. Maybe I've got not enough airflow. I don't really know. So let me know in the comments below if I've done it wrong. Now, with all of that said, I'm fairly sure that once this is hot, once the burner has burnt down, I can refill it with the steam gel, relight it, put it back in, and it will come back in steam fairly quickly. So I'm sure I can get a similar result to what I was achieving with solid fuel, just making sure that fire has gone out, relighting and going again, rather than firing it on the run and keeping a continuous run kind of going on. I'm sure I'll figure it out eventually, but so far, it works, doesn't it? The other big problem is, once it's finished burning, it leaves you with all this debris. At least the solid fuel kind of burnt all of it away, rather than leaving all this residue that I need to deal with. I like the old stuff better. It's to be fair, it's taken my enjoyment out of this enough that I might contemplate spending the 40 quid to get my license for 3 years and buy some solid fuel for it and run it on the old stuff, because I loved running this. That was a good hour worth of enjoyment, and now I've got 10 minutes of playtime for 15, 20 minutes of setup time. It's really, yeah, what a shame. Anyway, let me know, am I doing it wrong? What do you think about this? Or have you got any other suggestions for how to run this and what to run it on? And with that, thank you all very much for watching. And that's this looking at what to do without the illegal fuel. So thank you very much. If you have enjoyed this, how about clicking over there for another miniature video, or down there for the video I did, well, the ASMR video, running this when it was back on the proper fuel way back. I think we shot that during COVID times. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed that. And well, I'm going to give this another attempt because I've still got half a boiler full of water, and see if I can get a bit more enjoyment out of it. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.